What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. So, today we're going to talk about fake Les Pauls because I keep seeing tons of stuff online, and we've kind of had this conversation before. I had a Chibson at one point. I think I did a video on it and kind of went over it and stuff like that. But what I keep seeing is people keep asking the same question. Is this a real Les Paul or is this fake? Real or fake? I can't tell. I can't tell. And so I'm going to give some kind of pointers and some indicators to make it a little easier so that you can kind of figure this out for yourself instead of having to go to the internet and ask a bunch of random people who sometimes don't know what they're talking about. So many times I will see blatantly fake Les Pauls that people are like, that's real, and then I'll see blatantly real Les Pauls and people are like, I don't know, it looks weird to me. There's just a bunch of people that have no idea what they're talking about or what they're looking at, and they're going to be the first ones to tell you something wrong. So, like, I'm going to take one of my Les Pauls and I'm going to show you some indicators of a real Gibson Les Paul. And then I don't have a fake one with me. I got rid of that one. But I will kind of explain what some of the things about a fake one would be, like big red flags, so you can kind of tell, oh, hey, real one has this, fake one has this, they don't have the, etc., whatever. So, let's get into it. Real Gibson Les Paul. Okay, this is a 2004 Gibson Les Paul Standard. And the reason I'm going to use this one to kind of show you some stuff is because it has a transparent finish on the back, and this is a really big thing. Now, a lot of your solid color Les Pauls, like the white one or the black one, even the silver burst one, sometimes some of these things you're not going to be able to see, right? So there are other things that you can look at, right? But again, with a lot of the guitars that are being faked are like burst and stuff like that, and they will have these transparent finishes on the back. And there are some huge indicators. So, the biggest thing that's going to tell you that it's a real Gibson Les Paul is you see the back of the headstock here. See how there's these little wings glued onto the sides of the headstock? See that? I haven't come across a fake that has that yet. Like, I've seen a bunch of fakes, and they all just have like a one-piece headstock. They don't have the little wings glued on. So that's a real big indicator. If you see a one-piece headstock, probably a fake. Now, I say probably because you never know what could have happened in the life of a guitar, right? A headstock break, a repair, a veneer put on it, something, right? There's 1,000 things that could happen in the life of a guitar. So not one of these things is like a smoking gun per se, but it's kind of the accumulation of, like, if you notice multiple things, like, yeah, okay, this has all of these things that point that it's real or that it's fake, whatever, right? That's kind of what you're looking for. It's like kind of a sum of these things. So, but this is a big one, is the headstock wings. Don't go by this, like the Made in USA, the serial number. A lot of these fakes, they put real serial numbers. They'll take a real serial number off of a guitar they've seen and put it on there, and it'll say Made in USA on it. That doesn't mean anything, okay? Another really big indicator, and this might be the biggest indicator of all, is the truss rod. See the nut on the truss rod? A lot of the fakes I've seen will have metric style truss rods, like an Ibanez or an ESP or something has, like an Allen wrench. Put an Allen wrench in there, you turn it like a Fender has. A lot of the fakes will have that. Gibsons never have that. They have this, with this nut on it. So if you see this, there's a good indicator that it's real. Does that mean there aren't fakes out there with these? No, it doesn't mean that. But again, we're looking for a sum of these things. There isn't one smoking gun, right? So, but that is a big indicator. Another big indicator is going to be, see if I can get this on my camera. See these little pieces of binding that come up around the ends of the frets, fret nibs? Not a lot of fakes are going to have that because it's really hard to do. Not every real Gibson's going to have it. My black Les Paul here does not have fret nibs on it because I had it refretted. And they came off. They got sanded off when it was refretted. But again, That's a really big thing to look for. If you see a guitar with these, really big indicator that it's probably good, okay? Another thing is going to be the bridge. Making sure I don't smash my headstock into the ceiling here. See the small bridge post? Now, if you've ever looked at like an Epiphone or an ESP or something like that, they have like the bigger metric style post in them. Gibsons will have these smaller posts. So if you see a guitar that has those big, you know, they come with like a flathead screwdriver head on it, that's a big indicator. Might be a fake. Now, does that mean somebody didn't put something like that on a Gibson? No, it doesn't. Again, anything could have happened. You need to look at multiple things, but that's a big indicator that it could be a fake if you see something like that. Another thing to look for, and this is where the transparent finish kind of comes into play, along with like the headstock wing thing, is the neck. So this is a one-piece neck. Okay? Epiphones will have a thing called a scarf joint. There will be a glue seam right here where the headstock is glued onto the neck. It won't be one piece. Likewise, this one's kind of hard to see because it has this darker finish down here. But if you have a glue seam down here too, a lot of times the Chinese companies, they will glue a heel cap on to the end of the neck because there's not enough wood here, so they glue a little piece on. If you see that, big indicator that that's a fake. Another thing to look for is the body. It's kind of hard to see, but again, if you have better lighting, you can see this guitar, I believe, is a one-piece body, which is kind of wacky. Most Les Pauls will be like two-piece bodies, but I think this one's a one-piece. But if you see like multiple pieces, right, and they kind of make no sense. Now, again, this is one of those things where, like, has Gibson ever made multi-piece bodies before? Yes, they have. There was some goofy stuff back in the 70s, you know, and whatnot. But generally speaking, if you find a guitar and it has a whole bunch, you see a whole bunch of different pieces of wood down here, 5, 6, 7 different pieces of wood all glued together, probably not a good sign. Let's see. Another big thing that I've noticed on some of the fakes is the knob placement. See how the knob placement here, how this knob is like right under kind of the back of the tailpiece here? A lot of times the knobs won't be in the right spot. Like they'll be a little too far forward or a little too far down, right? That's a big thing to look at. Look at how they've placed the knobs. And also the style of knobs. A lot of times, now yes, people can swap knobs very easily, but a lot of times the fakes will have really cheap, you can kind of tell, like, that's not like a Gibson knob. It's like the numbering will be off. The font on the numbers will be kind of smudged or goofy or something like that, right? These might seem like silly things to look for, but it adds up. Again, we're looking for an accumulation of things, right? Another big thing is going to be the headstock itself. Now, Gibson, throughout the years, has kind of changed the shape of their headstock. Sometimes it's bigger, sometimes it's wider, sometimes the logo is more down, sometimes it's more up. So you kind of have to know a little bit about like the era of Les Paul that you're looking at, right? But if you see a headstock shape that's kind of weird, the dimensions are a little off, maybe it seems a little squished or something like that, that could be a red flag, right? Again, if somebody's saying this is a 90s Les Paul and you go look at a bunch of 90s Les Paul headstocks and that one looks way off or the logo's kind of canted a different way or it's crooked or something or whatever, right? Like, you know, look at those things. You can look up pictures and stuff. You can find pictures of real Les Pauls from different eras and stuff like that. The headstock shape is a big one that these fake companies seem to always kind of get wrong. Another thing is going to be the horn, the cutaway. I've seen a bunch of fakes where the cutaway just didn't quite look right. It was a little too straight or a little too... Same up here with this kind of... this upper bout shape. A lot of times it's a little pinched or a little fat. They kind of... sometimes they just don't... they don't really quite get it right, you know? So these are just some things that you can kind of look at that will kind of help you out when you're trying to figure out if the Les Paul you're looking at is real or fake. Now, when it comes to the solid color ones, like I was saying a minute ago, it's a little harder to tell. So I'm going to give you something here. On Les Paul Customs, especially. Or Les Pauls that have headstock binding, I should say. Which would primarily be like Customs and Supremes and stuff. This would be a good way to tell. See how the binding comes to the top of the nut, and then the neck binding comes to the bottom of the nut, and there's no binding underneath the nut right here? I don't have one, but Epiphones don't do that. Epiphones will have the binding that's on the headstock kind of comes down and underneath the nut a little bit. And if you see a guitar that says Gibson on it that has that kind of thing going on with it, that's fake. Gibson does not do that. They cut the binding all the way through right there, ends at the top of the nut, ends at the bottom of the nut. The binding does not come up underneath the nut. Gibson doesn't do that. So if you're looking at a custom that's in black or, white or silver burst or something like that, and you can't see, you can't see the headstock wings. You can't see if there's a scarf joint on the neck or anything like that. You can't see if there's multiple pieces of, glued together, right? That's a really good indicator for looking at customs, because a lot of customs are solid color. So that's going to be pretty much it. I'm sure there's some things I've missed or, kind of forgot, but I've just been seeing a lot of stuff online lately about people asking about fake Les Pauls, real Les Pauls. So these are just some things you can look at. The biggest thing, I think, though, would be to just kind of educate yourself. Do some research. We're all online chronically 24/7 all the time anyway. Just Google some stuff. Do a little research. Find out some things, about Gibson and its history, how they do their headstocks. Like I said, this headstock doesn't look the same as the standard headstock. Not just because it has the binding, but, it's a little wider. Said sometimes Gibson has changed over the years. They've changed their headstock shapes. They've changed their logo placement. Find out what era of Les Paul you're looking at, what the person selling it is claiming that it should be. They're saying they have a 70s Les Paul. Look up other 70s Les Pauls. Get on Reverb, look at reputable sources, and if that guitar doesn't look anything like the ones you're looking at, well, then it's probably not real. Okay? Just trying to help you guys out. Like I said, you can go to these forums and stuff, like on Facebook and whatnot, and you can just randomly ask in the dark, and there's a lot of good people in there that know what they're talking about, but there's a lot of stuff in there too with just, I can tell, that people are just saying things and they have no idea what they're talking about. You have no idea if the person coming to you has any kind of credentials or reputation. I've been a professional guitar tech for 20 years, and I'm a huge Gibson fanboy. I've owned a lot of Les Pauls. I've been around a lot of fakes. I've seen a lot of them. I've had my hands on them. There are things that I see very consistently, and that's what some of these things are. They're things I've seen over the years very consistently that indicate fakes versus the real deal. So, hope that video helps you guys in the future. Maybe if you're browsing through Marketplace or, something, local Craigslist ads or something like that, and you come across a guitar that you're kind of unsure about, maybe this video can kind of help you pinpoint some of these things. If you see something, feel free to reach out to me. If you see a guitar and you're a little unsure about it, get some pictures of it, shoot them to me in a DM. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. It's just my name, Devin Williams. Find me, shoot me a DM, some pictures of a guitar if you're unsure about it, and I'll help you out the best I can. I've had a bunch of people reach out to me already about guitars, asking me, hey, is this real, is this fake? And I've kept a couple people from making some really bad decisions. I've also, unfortunately, had to break it to a few people that they had fakes when they thought they had real Les Pauls, and that always sucks. I hate it when that happens, so don't feel afraid to reach out to me and just ask me if you're unsure about something, but maybe the tips in this video can help you out. Hope y'all like it, and I'll be back soon.